Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I did an excerpt of voiceover for my Journey Series 94. And I'm talking about, some of these things that we're doing now, some of the changes. And I wanted to include that here. I have a couple of these that I'm going to, make into separate videos, but this is the first one. And here I'm talking about, how the transmission is flowing and me not being a preceptor in these things. So here it is. There was a lot of feedback from new people who had never tried Sage Marg and really weren't going to try it under Dodgy. I didn't really understand this until I started to get these comments. There were people who had been waiting to do it but didn't want to do it with Dodgy. And so when I said, let's do this together and just have these group meditations together, there are lots of people who are trying it and lots of people who are benefiting from it who might not have benefited even if the transmission was flowing because of their suspicion of, well, I mean, of course, Dodgy, his position has made it hard for them as truthers to, do his thing, do it with him. But I'm seeing a need to go beyond the organization, even if Dodgy was great, right? I mean, there's people who will connect to some person who does heartfulness, but not necessarily to the master of the system at first or any of these things. And they don't want any part of some sort of organization. They'll try to meditate, but they don't want any of this, stuff, right? And so I think we're ending up here was inevitable because I think it's something that needs to happen because the most important thing is that people benefit from the transmission any way possible. And if they don't want certain aspects of an organization or, an ego level, at least at first, they can try it in a setting like this where it's just people meditating together, kind of unofficially grassroots level stuff, and build a community of like-minded people. That's the other problem, is that it brought together groups of people that the only thing they really had in common was they did Sage Marg. And I'm not talking just about the difference between like the Indians and the Americans, here in America, but I mean, there's so many differences even within the Indian culture and, of course, in the American culture, so many different groups and demographics. And people, for whatever reason, feel uncomfortable going to a demographic that they don't feel a part of. I mean, it's always been a problem, even here in America where it's multicultural. And things are so divisive now. I think it's just important that, something like this is, a good example of what could happen, right? For individual groups of people that come together that have more in common and identify more with their belief systems and other things and do the same thing that everyone else is doing, but they just do it within the context of their own group. I mean, I feel like, I didn't understand that till now, but this is, opening it up for more people that wouldn't have tried it otherwise, which is ultimately what needs to happen. Everyone getting the opportunity to experience transmission, and then make a decision on whether that's something they want in the future. And once their soul gets in touch with it, whether it's next life or this life or 5 lives from now, they'll come back to it, right? And so the more people that experience it, the better. I mean, that's something that I've firmly believed in. So for those reasons, I'm very happy about what happened. It was a success. I felt good about the meditation, which I'll talk about in a separate video. I've already talked about in the end of my last Journey Series video. But I was happy with the meditation. There's a lot of energy there, and then so many people reported having positive experiences. And now I'm figuring out a way that people can get their first 3 initial sittings, and I'm going to discuss this separately. But I'm not, comfortable acting as a preceptor. Like there's this saying in the used by Master Chargy occasionally. It's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. But this is a spiritual discipline. And the one thing that I can say, and I just talked about this in a video on my other channel, that what I've gotten from the Sage Mark system is my decision making has gotten a lot better, in the sense of I'm able to figure out what God and my soul want me to do and then do it, right? And sometimes I'm not psyched about it. Sometimes I don't necessarily agree with it or want to do it, but I do it, right? And it's clear to me what I should do. And that has been honed and gotten so much more refined, but it was there from the initial stages of doing the Sagemark system. It was clear that, that you're supposed to do this, all the big decisions, and developing the heart as an instrument to gather information and, feel your way into what God wants you to do. And so, I was a preceptor for a while, but Master Chargy, rescinded that. And, I was bummed out at the time, but I've come to believe that it's allowed me to do things that I might not have done had I been a preceptor. I would have been less likely to, be myself on YouTube. I would have been more reserved and more worried about reflecting on the mission in the beginning, certainly the early years, with everything that's happened, that's just out the window because, compared to what they're doing, Dodgy and his clan are doing over there, what damage could I do, really? But in terms of, just free time and some of these other things, and, had I been a preceptor, I probably would have gave sittings to a lot of you all, and then we would have been a part of the organization, and so it would have been me leaving as a preceptor with a bunch of people who, do the meditation. It's just, that wouldn't have been a bad thing. So I think that was, that I know that was part of a plan. And so I haven't felt comfortable with the idea of just giving sittings. I know that people in the past that had splinter organizations, Chargy was a legitimate master, and so that's the difference in terms of these other organizations or other people leaving the mission, right? Because they were just rejecting Chargy based in they didn't like him or he wasn't as good as Babaji or whatever it was. Where Dodgy has, just abdicated his responsibilities and is gone like full criminal. He's gone full like gangster over there. But those organizations, they were still transmitting, and Chargy said what happens is they get cut off from the source, which is what happened to Dodgy, I believe. And they can transmit for a while, but eventually, they're the conduit aspect where they're connected to the source and the energy flows through them is gone, and they just deplete their own reserves of God's love, and then there's nothing there. And, that's a concern of mine because I'm not willing to do that, right? And so, what I've done here is I've always had the thought that if the masters, the divine hierarchy, God want to transmit through me, I'm a willing participant. Like they can do whatever while I'm sleeping, whatever, if they want to, use me as they have people are, centers, right? Preceptors are centers, and where this energy, it's like a cell phone tower, right? So the transmission can flow through my voice into these videos or wherever my heart, whatever these very spiritual points. And, it can happen, but I'm not going to consciously make it happen. I'm not going to have the thought I'm transmitting. I'm not going to act like a preceptor. I'm not going to flip any switches. I'm just saying, that I'm open to it, that it can flow through me during these meditations and things because of my, years of practice here, and that they can, use me in any way they want for this conduit activity, but I'm, not comfortable like saying that I'm going to, make myself a preceptor or, I'd have to have some sort of divine intervention, which I don't think I've ever had anything that clear where I was given an order to start doing that, right? Babaji was intercommuning with Lalaji, and Babaji was never made a preceptor. So Babaji wasn't a preceptor when Lalaji was around, but Lalaji started to intercommune with him and told him transmit here, transmit there, clean this, cut off this, destroy this. He was given all these orders. And I don't have that kind of clarity in my, I know what to do when I'm like forced to make a decision, but I don't have that kind of connection where I have these instructions and things like that. And so, but I think it's worked well enough that, and I like the idea that people themselves find a way to connect, right? I think you have to be a little bit more proactive to connect with the energy. You have to, be like less passive and, more active in your intentions and things, and say you're willing to receive the transmission and things. I think that actually helps people in their experience of it. And, it can flow through any person or directly to a person, depending on the circumstances. And the more people that do it together, collectively, there's going to be, a field of this egregore, this field of group consciousness that draws higher levels of energy for individuals to experience the whole energy of the collective, right? So I'm going to put this segment in a video, for just everybody so they understand what's going on here. And that it's not me being a preceptor or me being a pseudo master or something like that. It's just that everyone is connecting to God directly. And, whatever way that happens, it's up to our inviting it in and, the divine beings and the people who run the heartfulness system, divine hierarchy as it's called, how they facilitate that connection and make the transmission, available to us, right? So there's one more thing I want to add here. That's the voiceover I put in my Journey series video. But there was a friend of mine who, I've talked about this guy before. He's a rocket scientist. I think I mentioned him recently. And he was in the Boston Center, and he hated the other preceptors, or the preceptors. He wasn't a preceptor yet. And there was so much drama in that center, and it was a center my ex came from. I mean, there's a bunch of people there. And it was always considered kind of a nightmare center for whatever reason. And he and two other people who, the preceptors were all gone for a gathering or something, and they meditated without a preceptor. And he said that there's three people, and he and one person went into samadhi the whole time for like 50 minutes or an hour or whatever, a deep spiritual condition state. And the other person went in for all but 5 minutes. And it was a phenomenal sitting without a preceptor. And Babaji talked about, maybe having to go without preceptors, maybe changing that. Master Charji hinted at that. There was, issues with preceptors. And, I benefited from this preceptor system. I had a lot of great preceptors. There are a lot of great preceptors out there. And so I'm not, saying that it's a totally defunct system. But like everything else, it is experimental. And they have different ways of people receiving transmission. And who's to say in the future how that's going to be? But Babaji has said in a recent Whispers message that, we have the ability for telepathy, and it's being constrained by the electromagnetic web. And when that disappears, people's abilities will emerge, and maybe people will just connect in a channeling type of way, the way the medium did, and the transmission will flow through that process, right? And people just know things and understand things on a different level because there won't be all this pollution and this, the constraints of our modern day system and the Kali Yuga and all the rest of it, right? And so it's important to understand that this is something that we're experimenting with or trying and, figuring out if this will work. And the first Sunday meditation went well. And so, I wanted to see, I didn't know what was going to happen. But now we know that, I experienced this personally, so I knew it could happen, that we didn't have to be a part of the Heartfulness organization. And, we have, not only the right, but the duty to leave an organization when the master of the system is behaving in a way that's not in line with the principles and teachings of the system. We're not supposed to stick around and, suffer through it with them. And so, this is what's happened. And, this is at least, for now, a good solution, this group meditation on Sunday. So, anyways, I want to just I'm going to put a few of these videos up from time to time about the meditation group, and those doing the meditation can, think about these things and understand what's going on. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.